Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I want to talk about how avoidants act and behave when they truly fall in love with you and the commitment is more serious. It's not just the action of the fleeting feeling of love. I shouldn't say fleeting, but the intense feeling that can be accompanied with love. This is also the foundation that is produced throughout the relationship. And so you're not going to see this in like the first month or two. You might see a little bit of it, but I want to talk about how that looks like so that you know the relationship is forming into a little bit more of a healthy, more stable relationship to which the love actually has some backbone to some extent. And I think that's very important because a lot of times with relationships, the feeling of love versus the action can sometimes defeat one another in some sense. And so you might have the avoidant individual might have a feeling of love, but they haven't invested in the action of love, which makes it easier for them to run away. But if they have the investment of love, it's actually can sometimes be helpful for them to stay to some extent. So I wouldn't say they defeat one another. That was not the right word. But it's really that without one or the other, the relationship will not be fully stable, because there are some relationships where the act of the commitment itself is there, but the love might feel not as often, which could make you feel empty and detached, which could make you break up. And so you do need both. You do need the feeling to have some prominence and also the act of the commitment. I'm sorry if that made no sense, but whatever, we're moving on. So what are the signs that avoidants show that they have that foundational love? The first one is they actually have some standards, some desires from your side, okay? Avoidants may communicate expectations, or they may ask you for specific things, changing specific behaviors. This is often vulnerability, okay? This is a sign of vulnerability, but it's not just vulnerability. It's also investment. And a lot of times with avoidance, particularly, they need to have that sort of investment to value it. This is a little bit more common with I wanted to say with dismissive avoidance, but I think it's just different. With a dismissive avoidant, investment means that they feel like they are earning something and they're proud of themselves. With a fearful avoidant, that investment almost feels like they're not afraid that they will lose something. And so it's actually quite different. But with a fearful avoidant, as they continue to invest in something, they almost feel as though they think in their mind, their fear is that anything they invest in will be taken away. By them slowly investing and they're not losing this relationship, they actually start learning that love is powerful and that they get very connected and very happy towards this particular person. That foundation is building strongly. With dismissive avoidance, they feel like investment is evidence in their mind that this is something to be taken seriously. Most dismissive avoidants, what they love and value in their life, their car, their job, their house, they invest in it. And so if they are missing that investment, their mind and their perspective of themselves is that they may not realize how much they love you until they add that investment piece. So it's very important that if you're seeing this, it can be overwhelming at first because it can be a lot, it can be harsh, but take some of what they're saying and actually take it seriously, depending on the severity of this, right? Because if it's too overwhelming, please, communicate that. But if they mention something small and you feel like it's acceptable in your case and your perspective, that is something to keep in mind and communicate them verbally. Yeah, that's something I can do. And we'll also model that they can do that as well when you bring something up, okay? The next one is increased tolerance. They are willing to endure emotional conversations, endure situations that used to make them uncomfortable, behaviors that they would typically avoid. They're starting to get more comfortable with this. This is really important because most avoidants who are healing and committing admit that this is something they had to do. I had to do this. I had to be more tolerant of certain things, and I actively thought about it. I actively thought I want to be more tolerant of certain behaviors. I want to be more tolerant of certain conversations. I want to be less sensitive to criticism when he would say something. I actively worked on this. He had to actively work on his own version as well. He would say that he wanted to make sure that, like for him, and I think this is more common fearful avoidance, he would get really caught up in his own head, and then he would think I'm saying or doing something that I'm not, and then he will crash out about that even though that's not what I said. And then what would happen is he would realize, okay, that's not what happened, and then he would regret the whole thing and then try to erase the whole thing, and it already happened. And so it would almost feel like a cycle, roller coaster for me, because I didn't really know what was happening. And so for him, what he had to do was he had to realize and take it slow what I did say and not be so triggered, right? He would heighten when he was triggered. like, get lost in it. What I would do when I would trigger is I would start having like more negative thoughts, and I would think, okay, this is proof that, I can't say this anymore, right? And I would almost say things. I would say it was a more defeatist mentality, but he would say it sounds sarcastic. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic, but then that would trigger him. So let's say, for example, he said, you said that you would do this and maybe you forgot, but that didn't happen. And I would be like, okay, it looks like I can't, like, I get it. I told you I was busy. Looks like I can't even have room for myself, right? And I meant that like literally. This is just an example. That's not what actually happened. But he would be like, oh, wow, like that's, a bad remark. And I would say it in such a bad tone. And so what I realized is I had to be more tolerant of what he's saying in his perspective. And then he had to be more tolerant that I was feeling a type of way. Like I was feeling a little trapped. And my go-to back then is I would say, oh, do you have a whole list of all my flaws? I would always say that. Like maybe we should make a wall of shame where I write all my flaws. I know it's so immature, right? But please remember, I was like very young, like literally fresh as an adult when this was happening, like in our relationship. So I could have definitely improved my communication, but that's what I did. I would be like, okay, let's talk about my flaws, considering everyone loves to talk about my flaws. No one's, praising me for all the effort I put into, and then that would heighten him. And so increased tolerance was something we both had to do. If we did not increase tolerance, we would probably not be in the situation we were in. And we worked on that really quickly because we both, one thing we always were good at is towards the end of a conversation, we would always say, what can we do better? He did that. I did that. This was regardless of how, in the beginning of our relationship still, we always did that. What could we have done better? And he would say, this is what I can improve on. And then I would say, this is what I can improve on. So we would always walk away with like a summary. And a lot of times in the beginning, it was tolerance that we had to discuss about, right? I would say, I shouldn't have taken it like this. And he said, I shouldn't have taken it like that. And this is a frustrating part about these relationships because you're fighting or you're having a trigger about something that didn't even happen. And so it's like, you wouldn't even have to waste that time. You could just be happy and cooking and watching TV or whatever, but you got, stuck on these little things. And so increased tolerance, when an avoidant loves you and they're committing and they want to move forward with this relationship, this is a must. It has to happen. Otherwise the relationship will be difficult. We had to fix this. Both of us had to really commit and we had conversations about this all the time, how to not do this. And when we would notice the other person was getting a little triggered, me pulling away, him heightening, we would talk about it. Okay. The next one is softness or vulnerability. You would see that they genuinely appear more softer, more excited. Their tone might even be more softer, less harsh around you. This is also really important. The next one is commitment during challenges. Okay. And this is going to be the last one. And we're going to talk about it and then we'll try to summarize. Normally what happens is during difficult times in your relationship, instead of backing away, instead of reacting poorly or blaming the other person, they try and find a middle ground. That's actually what I was just talking about that we did. And I didn't even realize that that was something that we did that other couples don't do. We always, no matter the challenge, we found some way to get past it. Sometimes it was to the point where we're like, especially in the beginning, we don't know how to solve this, so let's just not talk about it until we find a solution. I know that doesn't work for everybody, but it did work for us. When there was an issue and we're like, okay, I don't really know, that was really tangled. What do we, especially I would say with a couple that's one's dismissive, one is fearful, where, there's a lot of things going on. Sometimes you don't know the solution. And so you might say, what we did is during this challenge, I don't think talking about it is helpful. Let's talk about it again. And we've had times where we had some small issue. It seems so small. It seems small now. Back then we were all tangled with stuff. We would wait like months until we discussed it. And I didn't care. We didn't care. We still did things. And then when we were ready to talk about it, it was so much easier. And so you can see that they have that commitment towards resolving challenges one way or another. And they work towards it with you. And that's actually my go-to still. Sometimes if we don't know how to solve something outside of our relationship, because most of the issues, we don't really have much anymore. Of course, minor ones, but like major ones, there's really none. But anything, like let's say something about the house, right? We don't know how to fix this. We don't know if we should replace the kitchen sink. We don't know if we should do this. We don't make a decision right away. We take a moment to pause and think about it before someone makes a decision, okay? And so that standard, they will have a higher standard for you and for them. They have increased tolerance, softness and vulnerability, and there is commitment during challenge. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.